I warmly welcome you to the headquarters of the Office of the Special Prosecutor. You may have noticed, as you worked your way up to this room, that the office is still a work in progress. Yet, the current state of the office is pleasantly unrecognizable as compared to what it was when I was sworn in as the Special Prosecutor on 5 August 2021. From a drab 3-bedroom house, we moved the office here in September 2021, and we have been fitting it up and retrofitting it for purpose, inch by inch. Then again, from a situation of a single person on the payroll of the office, when I assumed this position, I am proud to announce that the office now has its full establishment staff of 249. This recruitment drive is 4 years behind schedule. However, we are excited that we have our full complement of the foundation staff seated now. We are ready to branch out into the regions, starting from Kumasi, Tamale, and Takoradi, and we will be seeking approval for clearance to hire more personnel. Members of the press, the office is the resolute flagship anti-corruption agency of the Republic in delivering on its mandate of investigating corruption and corruption-related offenses, prosecuting suspected offenders, recovering assets, and taking steps to prevent corruption. Apart from a few interviews we have granted in the course of 22 months, our interface with the media has been largely impersonal. We have invited you here for a change, to brief you directly on developments in respect of some ongoing investigations, and to take questions if you have any. I hope you don't have questions. On 22 July 2021, during my approval process before Parliament, I declared my resolve to render corruption a costly adventure on all accounts, and this office has been doing exactly that. A major pillar of the fight against corruption is transparency on the part of anti-corruption agencies. Corruption is perpetrated in stealth and in secrecy, and it thrives on its shrouded attributes. To firmly tackle corruption, we must fight it openly and bear it out in light for public scrutiny. At the OSP, we uphold transparency, and we inform the public promptly on occurrences and developments in respect of the cases under investigation and before the law courts. We do so where the publication will not endanger national security or compromise an ongoing investigation or unnecessarily impair the reputation of persons under investigation. In pursuance of transparency, we have adopted the policy that the office would issue a media release after every major judicial pronouncement or decision by informing the public on our judges' opinions in cases involving the OSP and stating the position of the office on the opinion in question as to whether the opinion progresses the fight against corruption or inhibits the fight against corruption. This policy is as novel as the office itself, and much like every aspect and operation of this office, the policy has generated public debate on its propriety or otherwise. Those who applaud this policy of transparency see it for what it is: public information and assurances of the position of the office on the fight against corruption, and nothing more. Those who decry it see it as an attack on the judiciary. Indeed, I have had several calls from well-meaning lawyers admonishing me that they have heard talk that our friends who have been elevated to the bench and presiding over cases in court do not take very kindly to criticism, especially of the public calling out variety as we do. And that if the office persists in the media releases, the judges will gang up against the office and throw out all our cases. Mind you, members of the press, the collective admonition is from very senior and experienced lawyers who are men and women of the world. Members of the press, my learning of the law for the past 25 years in 3 different jurisdictions, my teaching and training of lawyers and law students for the past 17 years, my 20-year record at the bar, all bear testimony that I will be the last person to head and lead an institution to attack the judiciary. It will be absolutely of no good and utility should it be the case that the OSP is set against the judiciary, or that the judiciary is against the OSP. That will surely spell disastrous consequences for this republic, especially in the fight against corruption, to the unending glee of corrupt persons. The OSP will not countenance for a moment such an impression. What we do is a statement of our position on judicial pronouncements in the context of the fight against corruption and whether it benefits the quest against corruption or otherwise. And this is so whether the judicial decision in question is favorable to the OSP or not. And to the well-meaning lawyers who call to admonish me, I always assure them that I do not believe that our judges see themselves as above criticism. Indeed, I vividly recollect when years ago, as a private practitioner, a justice of the Supreme Court softly chastised me in open court that I was not churning out enough published articles in critique of their work, because I was a lecturer at the University of Ghana. The judge added that criticism of judicial pronouncements was essential in guiding judges, and he fondly recollected the regular publications of old in the University of Ghana Law Journal and the Review of Ghana Law. I reckoned the judge's observation with admiration. Collectively with the well-meaning lawyers who admonish me, we philosophize and wonder if our judges would do such a thing as gang up against the flagship public anti-corruption agency to scuttle its work for whatever reason. Our musings ran along the lines of, would that not defeat the fight against corruption? Would that not put our young democracy in danger? Will the judges not stultify themselves in the process? We always end with an open-ended sigh. Sometimes a sigh of relief, sometimes a sigh of concern. That may that never be the case. And personally, I do not believe that our judges will ever adopt such a dystopian stance. However, members of the press, there appears to be a developing trend of rather regressive and dismissive judicial decisions in respect of cases involving the OSP, with troubling consequences. And it seems to us that a careful examination of these outcomes portends a disturbing specter that the fight against corruption is being hampered to the disbenefit of us all. And I do not say these things lightly. 4 instances will suffice. In one case, the OSP applied to the High Court for a confirmation of a freezing order in respect of a deceased person's estate. The judge refused to confirm the order by, in effect, holding that the OSP had come too late since the person of interest had died, and that his death had extinguished the inquiry commenced after the occurrence of death. We publicly commented on this outcome, and the danger of this outcome is obvious, members of the press. It is to the effect that a person may, in his lifetime, acquire property through corruption, and then upon his demise, happily pass on the corruptly acquired property to his estate, and by so doing, extinguish all scrutiny as to the propriety or otherwise of the acquisition of the property, because his corrupt activities were not discovered during his lifetime. In the second instance, the OSP had declared as wanted a person it believed to be a fugitive from justice. The person, through his lawyer, proceeded to the Human Rights Court on an ex parte application And the judge, without even an inquiry as to why the OSP believed him to be a fugitive from justice, issued an injunction that the OSP should not arrest the person for a period of 10 days. Members of the press, this is dangerous. It encourages criminal suspects to go before the courts to seek injunction orders against law enforcement agencies from apprehending them. The judge did not advert his mind to the well-founded proposition that no one has the right not to be arrested, and he accorded the suspect a right not to be arrested. In the third instance, the OSP applied to the High Court for a confirmation of a seizure order and a freezing order in respect of a person who had just resigned from a ministerial position and had reported that large cash sums in foreign denominations had been stolen from her residence. In addition, the OSP subsequently discovered additional large cash sums in foreign denominations and cedis still stashed in her residence. The judge hastily dismissed the OSP's application and ordered a return of the seized amounts and the defreezing of her property. And he proceeded to lash out at the OSP for not doing a thorough investigation, without the slightest consideration that the seizure and freezing orders are designed by law to facilitate investigation into the affairs of suspects, and not the other way around of requiring thorough investigations before the OSP can seize or freeze. The judge also completely ignored the fact that in almost every jurisdiction, including Ghana, it is extremely unusual and highly suspicious for a public officer to have such large cash sums stashed in their homes, and that the circumstances of the case dictated pause and reflection and the granting of the OSP adequate time to carry out its investigation. In our estimation, the judge was only interested in the return of the money to the person of interest and nothing more. Then he proceeded to erect non-existent legal barriers to prevent the OSP from investigating the matter. I'll revisit this case. Members of the press, in the fourth instance, the OSP had issued an investigation report in respect of the grant of a customs advance ruling by the Customs Division of Ghana Revenue Authority. The report opined that there was an institutionalized culture of light-hearted unconcern regarding impropriety of action at the Customs Division of Ghana Revenue Authority, which indicated a high propensity to engender corruption and corruption-related activities. Consequently, the Special Prosecutor directed the opening of a wider investigation in respect of the affairs of the Customs Division. Further, in pursuance of the office's mandate of taking steps to prevent corruption, the Special Prosecutor directed remedial action by Ghana Revenue Authority. The authority has instituted processes on the basis of the Special Prosecutor's directive, which has saved the nation substantial revenue. Then comes the problem. The affected customs officials proceeded to the High Court to challenge the work of the OSP. The judge accused the OSP of constituting itself into a court and a commission of inquiry by making findings. In doing so, the judge conveniently shut his eyes to an express statutory provision that the OSP has the mandate to publish detected acts of corruption, and that was exactly what the OSP had done in the report. I wish it had ended there, but worse. The judge then proceeded to prohibit the OSP from further investigating the affected persons. Members of the press, the judge fell into the grievous fault of what he accused the OSP of by outlandishly going beyond his jurisdiction with a purported clothing of the affected persons with immunity from investigation and hence immunity from prosecution. Members of the press, the duty and mandate of the courts is to apply and enforce the laws of the Republic. and not to grant persons immunity from criminal investigations and prosecution. A court cannot injunct the OSP from investigating or prosecuting any person. The decision to investigate and prosecute lies with the investigation and prosecution authorities, such as the OSP, and the OSP has at all material times carried out its power to investigate with candor and professionalism, being minded of the rights of suspects under its investigation. Members of the press, just as it is essential that anyone accused of a crime should have free access to the courts so that he may be duly acquitted if found not guilty of the offense with which he or she is charged, it is also of the utmost importance that the judiciary should not interfere with investigation and prosecution authorities in respect of matters which are within their statutory powers. It will be gravely inimical to public policy, the fight against corruption, and the administration of justice if the court stepped into this arena to decide who should be investigated, who should be prosecuted, and who should not. That is not the function of adjudication. The danger of this startling decision is again quite obvious. A judge has in the process granted 2 persons immunity from investigation, and in effect, immunity from prosecution. This decision opens up a calamitous deluge, as every person under criminal investigation will be encouraged to take out suits to injunct investigation and prosecution bodies from investigating and prosecuting them. Indeed, there is a live case involving the OSP now, in which someone has taken the cue to seek to injunct the OSP from investigating them. The real and present danger looms largely on the consideration that by so doing, persons under investigation would end up conscripting the judiciary to clothe them with immunity from investigation and prosecution. Members of the press, I do not intend to sound as though I am predicting doom, but we are facing doom. And this is it. With this development, it will not be long. A suspected murderer or armed robber would boldly walk to court with the unthinkable prayer that the court should injunct law enforcement agencies from investigating him. We are not suggesting that the OSP does not make mistakes. We are not suggesting that we are infallible, and that every case brought by the OSP or against the OSP should end in a favorable outcome to the OSP, no matter how improbable the evidence. That is not what we are saying. However, it seems to us that this flagship public agency created by law to fight corruption should receive better regard and consideration by the courts, and not this developing trend of dismissiveness and regression without regard to its governing enactments, and certainly not the erection of non-existent hurdles in its work and operations. I wish I did not have to say all this, but it bears saying, and so I have said it. It is our duty as the Office of the Special Prosecutor to bear these things out. Members of the press, I proceed now to announce the commencement of investigation and corruption risk analysis in respect of the following matters. Number 1, government payroll. The OSP has commenced corruption risk assessment and investigation into suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses in respect of Government of Ghana Payroll Administration. The assessment and investigation are especially aimed at isolating and removing non-existent names, recovering wrongful payments, and the prosecution of persons suspected to be culpable for any offenses. The Controller and Accountant General's Department is actively collaborating with the OSP on this investigation and assessment. Indeed, a joint project team of selected staff of the two institutions has been formed. The investigation and assessment will cover all banks and employees on government payroll. The exercise will be carried out in 2 phases. Phase 1 will cover Ghana Education Service and the health institutions. Phase 2 will then cover all other metropolitan, municipal, district assemblies, ministries, departments, and agencies. Number 2, Tema Oil Refinery. I know some of you went ahead of me because a document that was not supposed to be brought to light was brought to light before my announcement. But hey, you are doing your work as media, so kudos. Tema Oil Refinery. The OSP has commenced analysis of the risk of corruption in respect of the proposed partnership agreement between Tema Oil Refinery and Tema Energy and Processing Limited. The Special Prosecutor has directed the management of Tema Oil Refinery to immediately suspend the proposed partnership agreement, ongoing negotiations, operations, and all other ancillary activities arising out of and consequent upon the proposed partnership agreement until otherwise advised by the Special Prosecutor to enable us to timeously conclude the work. Number 3, state lands, stew lands, and other vested lands. The OSP has commenced investigation into the appropriation, sale, and lease of state-owned lands and properties to individuals and corporate bodies since 1993. The investigation covers all lands and properties that fall under the direct stewardship of the Lands Commission, the Ministry of Works and Housing, all other ministries, State Housing Company, state-owned companies, and other state agencies. The investigation also covers the management of vested lands and all public lands over which the state's ownership or control has been relinquished and the conditions of the release and relinquishment. Cecilia Abenadapa. It will be recalled that in July, the OSP commenced investigation in respect of suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses regarding large amounts of money, mainly in foreign denominations, and other valuable items involving Ms. Cecilia Abenadapa, a former Minister of Sanitation and Water Resources, and her spouse. It will also be recalled that the office took several steps, including freezing Ms. Dapa's bank accounts and investments, and seizing large sums from the residence of Ms. Dapa and her spouse. It will further be recalled that upon the refusal by the High Court to confirm the freezing and seizure orders, the office re-seized the cash sums and refroze the bank accounts and investments and applied to the court again for confirmation. The matter is still pending. It will be further recalled that the investigation became cross-border and transboundary upon the claim by persons of interest that part of the seized cash sums was transported into the jurisdiction from the United States. For that reason, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, of the United States became involved in a collaborative investigative work with the OSP on the matter. The investigation has been largely aimed at determining the sources of the large cash sums. Members of the press, we have had the benefit of 5 months of investigation, and the circumstances of the case are clearer to us. The investigation appears to show that parts of the case are in the province of money laundering and structuring. The OSP does not have a direct mandate in respect of money laundering. Therefore, the office will be inviting in law enforcement agencies that have a direct money laundering mandate for collaborative work in respect of those parts of the case. And as we also await the outcome of the FBI investigation in the United States. Members of the press, almost a year ago, in a radio interview, I posed the question whether we are ready to fight corruption. This question had nothing to do with the preparedness of the OSP. It had everything to do with all of us, every citizen and resident of Ghana. I proceeded to answer the question with an unhappy outcome. It seemed to me then that we were not ready to fight corruption, and I tabled reasons for my conclusion. Chief among them being our collective tendency to largely remain silent, or at best render half-hearted commendation when anti-corruption agencies proceed against persons we dislike, and mercilessly tear to shreds the agencies when they repress corruption in respect of our associates. I do not intend to pontificate. However, I have to say this. We must uphold our institutions and strengthen them, especially our law enforcement agencies. We should not take the relative peace and security we presently enjoy for granted. Globally, we live in very troubling times, and we must guard our small slice of heaven at all costs. Members of the press, the OSP must be supported in this work. Should the OSP fail, Ghana would utterly lose the fight against corruption, with its attendant erosion of our democracy. Allow me to pose the question again. Are we ready to fight corruption? May God bless us all.
For more news, please visit our website graphic.com.gh or follow us on Facebook at Daily Graphic and on YouTube and Twitter at GraphicGH.
Subscribe now.